So let's start doing the exercises here. So rewrite the sentences to make them more emphatic. So basically inversion or inverted version of the same sentence. I didn't realize my mistake until years later. So as you can see here, not until. So I'm going to take the not from here, not, and then until. So not until years later. And then obviously did, I'm going to put before subject to invert it. Did I realize my mistake? So let's write it down. Not until years later did I realize my mistake. You see, not until years later did I realize my mistake. Number two, we had never seen such magnificent scenery. And as you can see, never we are putting at the beginning of the sentence. So that means inversion should happen. Had seen, this is past perfect. Auxiliary is had, and we must basically put it before subject because we here is subject. So we will do that, guys. Yeah, we will do that. Never had we seen such magnificent scenery. Never had we seen such magnificent scenery. Number three, they not only disliked her, but they also hated her family. So not only, so they dislike it. They dislike it. This is past simple. So if I want to make inversion, I must get help from auxiliary of past simple, which is did. So not only did they dislike her, did they dislike, not disliked, because I'm using did, so I must use infinitive. Not only did they dislike her, but they also hated her family. Number four, we only understood what he had really suffered when we read his autobiography. So only, so we're taking only from here, and we're taking when from here. So as I said earlier, not until and only when, only when and not until. As you can see, inversion happens in the second part of the clause, not the first part. So only when, so we read his autobiography. So we're going to write this all without any change. Only when we read his autobiography. And then look, we understood, past simple. So we're going to invert it with did. Did we understand, right? So let's do that. Only when we read his autobiography did we understand what he had really suffered. That's it. Only when we read his autobiography did we understand what he had really suffered. That's it. Number five, we had just started to eat when we had someone knocking at the door. So hardly, as you can see, hardly we've got here, hardly, see, hardly. So we had started to eat. So past simple, so hardly had we, hardly had we started to eat when we had or before we had someone knocking at the door. Okay, so let's write it down. Hardly had we started to eat. Hardly had we started to eat. So here, when or before we had someone knocking at the door. That's it. Number six. That's easy. I have rarely read such a badly written novel. So I'm going to put rarely before. So that will be inversion. So have read. I have read is present perfect. So if I want to make invert, auxiliary, which is have, has to go before subject. So let's do that. Rarely have I read such a badly written novel. Rarely have I read such a badly written novel. Until you've tried, number seven, until you've tried to write a novel yourself, you don't realize how hard it is. Again, as I said, like not until the first clause is not going to be affected by inversion. So it's going to have, inversion is going to affect in the second part. So here, not until, so until here, and then do not is here. So not until you have tried to write a novel yourself do you realize how hard it is. So not until you have tried to write. Let's do that. Not until you have tried to write a novel yourself do you realize how hard it is. Do you realize how hard it is? Okay. Number 8, the hotel room was depressing. It was cold as well. So here, not only was the inversion is happening, right? Not only was the hotel room depressing, but it was also cold. See, the depressing is it got G here, right? But it was also cold. Number 9. I mean here number 8, I can say but it was. I mean I can remove cold here if I want. That's also fine. It was cold as well. I mean if you really want it to be as it is, right? But it was cold as well. Number 9, we only light the fire when it is unusually cold. So only when it is unusually cold, it is unusually cold. So we only light the fire. So we light the fire, present simple. So if I want to invert the present simple, I must get help from auxiliary, which is do or does. For we use do. So do we light the fire? Only when it is unusually cold do we light the fire. Number 10, shortly after he had gone to sleep, he had gone. This is past perfect. The phone rang. So no sooner, yes, no sooner had he gone to sleep, no sooner had he gone. I'm inverting it, yeah? Had he gone to sleep. And if you remember earlier, I told you, like when we say no sooner, then we use then. Then the phone rang. You see? No sooner had he gone to sleep than the phone rang. 11. I only realized the full scale of the disaster when I watched the 6 o'clock news. I watched the 6 o'clock news only then. Only then. So like I realized the past simple, it will be did I realize the full scale of the disaster. Okay. 12. He has never regretted the decision he took on that day. So obviously never is coming in front. So that would be inversion. He has regretted the present perfect. So never has he regretted the decision he took on that day. Yes. 13. I spoke to the manager and the problem was taken seriously. So only when I spoke to the manager, only when I spoke to the manager, so like the problem was taken seriously, there's a passive voice. So if I want to invert that, I use was before the subject. Was the problem taken seriously? Only when I spoke to the manager was the problem taken seriously. 14. He had scarcely had time to destroy the evidence before the police arrived. So scarcely had he had time. Scarcely had he had. He had. Scarcely had. So past perfect. Scarcely had he had time before. Okay. time to destroy, right? To destroy the evidence before the police arrived. Before the police arrived. Yep. Now 15. He would never see his homeland again. Never again. So he would see. So here auxiliary is would. So would he see? Inversion. So never again would he see his homeland. That's it. Never again would he see his homeland. That's it, guys. So in this way, now we've completed this grammar inversion. In the next videos, we're going to continue with the next grammar bank topics, guys. So thanks for your time and see you again in the next videos. Bye-bye.